Okay, you've done your show, you're in the car, you ordered your pizza from the client's house, so when you get home, the pizza man will be there.
Always nice.
No anchovies for me.
Me
And
neither.
you're on your way home. How do you evaluate the success or failure of the show? Do you do it by the audience's reactions, such as a standing ovation, or audible gasps of amazement, or prolonged laughter, or you know, or do you use some other method to judge your work?
No, I think I do. First of all, I think judging and evaluating what you've done is one of the most important things you can do. And the best time to do it is right after the show while it's all fresh in your mind. Now, if, for instance, the show had been audio recorded, I would try to go home and listen to it that night while it was still fresh in my mind. As far as how do I evaluate, I pretty much follow this thing that Don Allen told me years and years ago. You watch their faces, and their faces tell you if they were fooled or not, if they're enjoying this or not. Their faces tell you everything.
Speaking of audio recording, how often do you do this? It's almost impossible to do it with close-up work unless you hide the recorder on your body.
Yeah.
But how much stand-up work do you do, and how often do you evaluate yourself with audio or video recording?
Well, I've been doing more stand-up work lately, and periodically I do record it. I use the audio recorder a lot more at home than I do on the spot, because particularly when you're doing close-up work, it'd be hard
Yeah.
to do it.
How has it helped you exactly? What changes have you made by using an audio recorder?
Well, the audio recorder alone isn't much. It has to be linked with what Rudolf Bultmann, the German New Testament scholar, called ruthless honesty. That is to say, we really have to look at the reaction we've been getting, and we have to ask ourselves whether that's the reaction we want to get. And if it isn't, then how can we change it to get the reaction we want to get? For some of my effects, I want people to squeal,
Yeah.
For other effects, I want them not even to applaud. I want them to just to create a sense of mystery that wraps them, and so that there's no applause even. So first of all, I have to be clear in my own mind, what response do I want? Now, one of the interesting things, about bizarre magic is that it opened a lot of us up, opened up our thinking to the realization that there are other legitimate responses that magicians should be going for other than laughter and applause. Now, laughter and applause are wonderful goals, but there are other goals. And if you were to go to a Dolly Parton concert, you would be put through lots of different emotional changes. If you went to a Ray Charles concert or the Rolling Stones or whoever, it's only when you go to magic concerts that you find that you're in the same state of mind. The performer is all the same. The show is the same. It doesn't put you through changes. There isn't a moment when things become delicate or whatever. It's all the same kind of comedy, pushing lines all the time.
Well, now, recently, I know that you have altered your Gypsy Thread routine to be one that was a comedic effect to something that is much more mysterious. Is that an example of
Yes,
what you mean?
that's an example of something originally that came about because of extensive dental work I had done, where I used to bite the thread, and then after $4,000 of the dental work, there was no point in my mouth where I could do that. And suddenly the question people would ask me periodically, magicians, they'd come up and say, well, how do you bite that thread? And I just kind of say, well, you bite it. Well, I didn't understand their question, but then I suddenly did. So for a long time, I didn't do that routine. And then I decided that it was one of my favorite routines, and there was something wrong with not doing it. And then I thought and thought. And then sort of like an inspiration, out of the blue, Hindu gods came to me, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And although that routine is not everyone's cup of tea, it is my cup of tea, and it's kind of the way I want some of my magic to go. I believe that a good show has texture, and that means that it's not all the same. In a show that
By that
has
you mean in terms of the emotional reactions of the audience, you don't want them to be always laughing or always gasping?
Exactly. I want textured
Right.
responses.
And if at one point you could get them to cry, that would be beautiful?
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's kind of an indictment of magic today that so little magic does make people cry or show any emotion other than just laughter.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever come back? Certainly, I can't really imagine a Eugene Berger performance bombing, but certainly you've been more successful at some than others.
Sure.
How do you deal with a negative experience at a show in terms of you left the show and you're thinking about that? Do you dwell on it? How do you bounce back? How do you deal with it?
Well, you bounce back by realizing that part of what life is all about is to grow. And if your focus is on growing, then you have the freedom to fail and to be awful and not to judge yourself because of that. Because anyone can be awful, and yet if your aim in magic is to grow, then there's a way out of being awful. It's called work and thought and evaluation. Sure, I've had a lot of, I used to do bar mitzvahs a lot, and I used to always feel depressed when I walked out of a bar mitzvah because working for 13-year-old children is really one of the roughest jobs a magician can do.
Yeah.
What I did there was, I doubled my prices. So I.
At least you could feel good about it when you
Yeah,
left,
exactly.
right?
So at least I felt good. So my bar mitzvah
If not
was
artistically, at least your pocketbook.
financially felt good, and that's how I dealt with that one. But no, I think a lot of times you'll have a reaction where you know that you want a different reaction, and then it's back to thinking about how can that goal that we have be realized. And this is a slow process, and don't let anyone tell you it's easy, because, you know from your own experience how difficult it is. Mm-hmm. How, when you get into this thing, you begin concentrating on what word should I use there. And we've gone through that, in terms of working with your material with Jan.
Right.
What word goes there? And this can be a real stumbling block for weeks and weeks until we find the right word.
Right. Especially for opening lines. Or
for opening lines,
right?
closing lines,
Yeah.
introducing things.
Yeah.
Segues are always the hard part.
Right.
So I think that a magician whose work is focused on growing has the permission to fail, but only if after failing you redouble your effort to understand your failure and try to discover ways that you can turn that failure into a success.